Hi, Dr. Phil. It's Ian Waterhouse here from My Supercar. How are you doing? There's Ben as well.
Good.
Hi, Ben.
All right.
Hi, good afternoon. Everything okay?
How's it going, Doctor?
Say that again, sorry.
I said, how are you today? Are you well? Are you ready for this?
Definitely, really good. Yeah, really.
Brilliant.
It's nice to get to talk to people again after this long season of not being able to get out and meet people around the paddocks and have chats with people at different things.
It's a complete change, isn't it? And then, to be honest with you, we're especially for me, it's still it feels very alien doing it this way. But I think we're giving people still a chance to something to watch. And as Hugh said earlier, motorsport is still happening, and it's not all frozen. So we're still very much all involved and wanting to get motorsport happening as quick as you can. But yeah, no. Back over to you, I guess.
Great, thanks. So one of the key things a lot of people ask me is, what is race psychology? And it's all about the mental preparation side of racing. It's about how you get into that right frame of mind. So you're motivated just to the right level. Sometimes you can be motivated and it's not quite enough, or sometimes you can be over motivated. Try it again. And be over motivated. And that can happen a lot if you see some of the races towards the end of the season, when there's a lot of pressure for the championship wins, especially when the points are close. So the mental preparation for me covers quite a few different areas, some you wouldn't expect. So there's a lot of work, like with any area of motorsport, pre-season. So it's those test days early on in the winter when it's cold, all those different areas when you can practice the mental preparation as much as on the race day. But also a lot of the work I do with races is after the race as well. So we'll catch up maybe the Wednesday or Thursday after a race weekend and just have a little bit of a review and a reflection of what's gone on. So where psychology comes in a lot is building up a consistent approach. And for me, that's the important part. Race wins are brilliant, but on their own, they don't win a championship. It's when you build that consistent approach across a whole year, that's when the sort of the accolades come in a lot more. And it covers all the aspects of racing I've said. And one of the other elements of across time and across situations as well. So it may be that you at the beginning of your racing career, or you're halfway through it, or you're trying to progress up through the different levels. So it can be a part of all those. And I say across situations as well. A lot of people I'll talk to say, I've got a favourite track and I've got a track I don't like as much. And I always say, okay, why? Let's have a look at this and try and work out what it is that you really like about this track and seem to do really well at, but this track you don't seem to like as much and you don't seem to do as well at. So we'll just have a look at that and see how that works out.
I have a question for you, Doctor, if that's okay. It's with regards.
Yeah, just call me Phil. Yeah,
Phil. The difference between mindset for qualifying and the race, as we know, qualifying, fastest lap, go as quick as you can, and then the race is different, isn't it? It's a longer ball essentially. What do you teach people, and how do you coach people into different mindsets in the difference between qualifying and actual race?
I tend to look at each part as a separate piece. So I use the analogy of a jigsaw puzzle. So if you put all the pieces in the right place at the right time, you will get to the picture. Even if you're not sure what the picture is, if you just put the pieces in the right place and get the best out from that one session, then that will work through to the best result you can get. And yeah, it's strange that you will find somebody who are really good at qualifying, but then can't translate that into race pace. Or some people just don't seem to get motivated for practice or qualifying, but come to light in the race and maybe qualify mid-pack, but all of a sudden they're pulling through and coming quite close to the front or winning as they get through the race.
So what types of things do you work on then to try and get them over that? If they are struggling a bit, or I can't get motivated for practice, I'm not really bothered. What types of things do you work on?
What I do is when I talk to people, I try to find out how each person thinks individually and what it is. And the way I found works the best, if I just ask them lots of questions and try and work out why and how they do things, and then get them to recognize how and why they do things, and then they can find the answers. And it's a lot more powerful if they can come up with the answer rather than I can. So it's very rare that I will sit down and I will say, I've raced for over 30 years. This is how I do it. Because that works for me, but it might not work for everybody else. In fact, it probably wouldn't. So it's finding out what is the best way for you and how we can get that to become a consistent approach and how we can get that to look at things.
Because
and a lot of the parties with the cars or the track or with whatever racing, we spend a lot of time collecting data, setting up. So it's whether suspension or aero or changing for track conditions. But how often as racers do we actually sit back and think, okay, I'm racing here today. Do I need to change my mental preparation? Because I'm coming into the beginning of a season, I'm halfway through a season, I'm leading the championship. So where do I sit with changing this mental preparation that I've got? Do I go for all out wins or do I play the percentages?
Absolutely.
I'll agree with some of that. Sorry, and I'll just jump in there. One thing for me as a racer that I was always when I started from the back of the grid from a DNF in the previous race, for example, I could always get to the front by the end of the race. But the second I got anywhere near the front, I almost started to lose my momentum. Almost I'd achieved my result. So I think as getting into your brain and understanding that isn't the job done. You've got to get to the end of the race first, not catch the pack up. And I think in my younger days, I didn't really kind of understand it so much. And I think getting a bit of a wiser head and, as you say, kind of understanding the situation and what makes you tick is the thing that starts to improve those little bits that carries on those wins.
It is. I think that's the important part. We're all different, and we all have different approaches. And then what makes it more complicated, we change as we develop. So it is very much part of this working to find out the ways that people will work and the best ways they work. And then I adapt to them. I don't bring them into my world and say, look, this is what this theory says. This is how it should be done. Therefore, you should do it this way. Because 9 out of 10 times it won't work. It is very much me coming to the person and saying, okay, right, how do you do this? Why do you do that? Have you considered where this comes into the way you prepare or you race or how you get on? And for me, a big part of the racing is start, and a lot of people don't tend to think a lot about that start process and the mental preparation. Not when they get to the line, but maybe the hour before. So when they're in the paddock, especially in some of the bigger championships, when you've got a lot of fans around, you've got the media interest, when do you actually start to prepare for that green light go? And again, a lot of people don't think that, but it can be quite an important part of that preparation to make that first start. Because I think whenever you watch any race, there's always somebody that seems to come from mid-pack, overtake 5 or 6 people, and you think, how did they do that? And the ones who sort of start early up and then end up going back into the pack. I was working with one driver once, and they were really good at starting, and they said to me, I'm on pole, what do I do? I said, well, you just do exactly the same as you've always done. Yeah, I know, but I'm on pole this time. And it's like, yeah, but you've got a great start and you've got a great strategy, so just stay with it. Yeah, but I'm on pole. And it was just that being at the front sort of just threw them a little bit. But they did brilliantly.
Is that similar to that's like imposter syndrome, isn't it? Where if you've never been on pole position before, suddenly you're on pole, you're like, oh, I feel like I don't belong here. Could you almost relate it to that?
Very much so, and it can all be the same if you're moving from championship to championship. And you go into a new championship and you're up against lots of champions or lots of people who've done really well in that championship. And I know a few people have sat back and thought, should I really be here? And said, yes, you should be here.
Yes.
So it can be that as well. Not just I'm on pole, but also when you're moving up or moving across the ranks through the racing series.
Excellent. We've had a couple of comments come in. If I could just say them out loud to you. We were talking before about some people have favourite tracks that they just do better at. Michael Cantella commented saying that's an interesting point. I never got on with Alton Park. Now, I imagine it's a different mindset. Alton Park, as we know, is quite a narrow track. It's quite twisty, whereas somewhere like Silverstone, you could turn a ship round on a hanger straight, couldn't you? Is that just preference? Is that they just need to get over a mental thing there?
It's sometimes it's back to what I said before in a way, it's trying to find out what it is that that person doesn't like about that. Have there been bad experiences there before, or have there been good experiences there before? So people tend to like tracks they do really well at. Sometimes it might be something practical that the machine they're racing is better suited to certain tracks. It may be better suited to wet days and dry days. So it may be part of that. But it is interesting, and I'm the same. I race, and there's certain tracks that I really love, and there's ones that I don't like as much. But then I sort of say, well, most tracks are the same in that they have straights, they have chicanes, they have left-handers, they have right-handers. So what's the difference? They're just in a different sequence. So if you're good at braking, if you're good at apexes, and you can do everything else, it's just in a different organized way that the track is set up, but they all have the same basic elements. So what is it within that makes it very different for you that you prefer one over the other?
Yeah, definitely. Look, one last comment, if I may, as well. Leanne Bezzi has just commented saying it's great to look at those who won at races and then world champion races and their different attitudes, their psychology. Lewis Hamilton, of course, just won his 7th world title, as opposed to, say, his teammate Valtteri Bottas, who's won numerous Formula One races but can't piece together a championship.
It's very difficult when you're looking at a motivation. What motivates people to carry on and compete? My PhD was in challenge, and I wanted to look at not just how people succeed and get to the top, but what is it that motivates them to do it again and again, and keep that motivation going across different races throughout a whole year to put a championship together, and that can be, again, different reasons why people want to be motivated to do certain races and do really well. And I think there is a difference between that level of motivation just to go out and compete and that level of motivation to keep competing at the top level. But I think what underpins a lot of it for me is fun. Are you enjoying it? The whole idea really is going out and enjoying the racing and coming back after having a good race. And maybe you haven't won, but you've had a fantastic race with 2 or 3 people that are exactly the same speed and exactly the same level as you, and you come back and it's absolutely brilliant. The rest of the race might not have existed, but that little battle that you've been involved with just brings you in. It's just a huge smile on your face.
Excellent. Right, Phil, Ben, I suppose we better leave it there, haven't we? But what a fascinating session that was. I enjoyed that. Phil, thank you so much for your time today. Dr. Phil Dupre, human performance psychologist